This is Morse, a video game that teaches you, well, Morse code. But how? How can a game teach you something? If I try to learn calculus in a game, for example, I would fall asleep the second I booted it up. I want to come back from work or school to turn off my brain and play. And you're telling me I have to go to class on my Xbox now? This makes no sense. Then what is the purpose of educational games like this? And why are they so important, not only for children, but maybe even more for adults? Well, let's dive into Morse and discover why it is a masterclass on interactive education and inclusive design. But to understand Morse, first I need to show you something. When I was a kid, I was homeschooled, meaning my mom taught me all I needed to learn instead of going to a school. First off, W-mom. Second, to aid her in her masochist quest, she usually set up a little video game in the family computer for me to play. The name of this video game was Peepo. I kid you not, the name was really Peepo. This was a collection of CDs that you pop into your computer and watch a little kid guide you through spelling classes, or naming the animals, or solving math problems. And I think this was my first ever interaction with these so-called educational games. I played tons of them when I was a young lad, and they were pretty fun, actually. Of course, I was still learning, but I felt like I was playing, because, well, I was. And ever since then, I've learned to take my education as a game. God, that sounded so wrong. Why do I keep writing these things? The point is that Peepo was made to be fun and engaging while it taught you something. And that is one of the biggest reasons as to why I think games like Morse are created. And today we'll dive into why they are made and how they accomplish the goal of making us learn, which, let me tell you, is way more interesting than I thought before writing this video.
Oh my lord, the freaking music is so calm and I am so not calm.
And speaking of Morse, here you take on the role of a telegrapher who is in command of sending out the coordinates of enemy ships for them to be attacked and destroyed by the Allies. The catch though, you have to give out all this information in Morse code. Its style reminds me a lot of Papers, Please, for example, with minimal visuals and retro-like sound effects that submerge you deep into its gameplay. And although the style is very similar, in Morse everything looks more fleshed out, more appealing and even nice looking to the eye. But that's of course for a reason. While in Papers, Please you are supposed to focus on the themes of the story and the narrative itself, in Morse its developer wants you to focus more on the learning side of things. Thus, he makes the game look more appealing and simple for everyone to understand. And that is no easy task, let me tell you. I spoke with Alexander Johansson, the amazing developer behind Morse, and he was kind enough to tell us about his goal with the game and his methodology while working on it. Disclaimer, I was sent a key of the game to try it out before its release, but this video is my decision to make, and in no way, shape or form has it, nor my opinion, been influenced by the developer. Alex is a great dude, and his game is even more amazing, and that's my opinion. Alright, let's keep going now. Alex, please, free my family, Alex. I did as you said, please. The first question I asked Alexander was the one that intrigued me the most, and also the simplest of them all. Why would someone build a game based on Morse code? Well, Alex has given us two specific reasons as to why. First, he states that he tries to approach all the people with his creations, people that may have never played a video game in their life, people that may not be as sharp with tech as you and I. That's why using Morse code is so important. And no, it's not because they are old and know Morse code. You should be ashamed of yourself if you thought that. It is because when you are using only one button to communicate, you simplify the neural process you're taking the player on. And this is made even easier to understand given he uses a telegraph as the one button, a cultural icon of telecommunications. You may have never used one or even seen one in your life, but you know what it is. And by bringing real-life objects and laws into the game, he's effectively making it easier for everyone to understand. The same way you expect to fall and die if you're not careful on the top of a skyscraper in Mirror's Edge, because that's how gravity works, you expect things in video games to work just like in real life. This way, as a developer, you give familiar inputs to everyone, and instead of discouraging the ones that may not play video games, you encourage them to use what they already know to learn and play not only the game, but actually video games in general. You see, people taught me maths and geography, but also taught me something else without me ever realizing it. It taught me to play video games. And more than that, it taught me to communicate with these complex pieces of LEDs, keys and machinery we call computers. The beauty of interactive learning is that it does not only teach you the subject of the lesson, but also the medium of it. And in this case, the medium is something so important to a modern society that not knowing how to use it may lead to struggle in various different areas of our life, because they all rely on this one thing: computers. So you see, it is not only about having fun playing, not even teaching an interesting subject on it, but every game also taught us to communicate with the world they are built in. This is why when the TV controller doesn't work, you press the button harder, because that's what made Mario jump higher. Or when an input is not being read by the system, you blow into it, because that's how you used to make video games work too. This is the importance of interactive education, not only in the medium of video games, but in everything. If you practice gymnastics, you will be at an advantage during an ice skating competition against gamers, because you already know the medium of physical body control much better than they do. This is the power of learning by doing. You can read a lot about how to play video games, every single manual of every single game in existence. But if you have never touched a controller or keyboard in your life, you'll be looking down every time the game tells you to press A. Because theoretical knowledge is just as important as practical knowledge, and if you never practice, it doesn't matter how much you know. For the medium that knowledge relies on cannot be studied to its fullest if it is not interacted with. This interactive education in gaming teaches us not only the importance of mediums as much as the lessons themselves, but also Alex Johansson through Morse gives us a masterclass on what we call inclusive design. As we already discussed, by using familiar elements such as the telegraph, Alex invites everyone to play the game, no matter the gaming experience. But that's not the only thing he accomplishes, really. Inclusive design is the practice of making a game accessible to a wider range of players by removing barriers for individuals with disabilities, temporary impairments, or different preferences. And this can range from something as simple as changing the color of blood in gory games, to something bigger, like making the game playable for blind people. Even subtitles can be considered inclusive design. The point is to make your game playable for a CSGO pro player, but also for your Aunt Clotilde whose only tech in her life is a pacemaker on her heart. And Morse accomplishes great inclusive design with the same tool it uses to create its interactive education: the telegraph. By making the only input of the game a simple button press, Alex brought down the barrier for people who may not be able to hold a controller or type on a keyboard. Because even if you have no fingers or no hands whatsoever, you can press a button. And it also goes beyond that. While playing the game, as I got better and grew used to the controllers, I found the speed of it quite slow. I pressed down so little amount of time for creating a dash that most of the times it registered as a dot. But right there, in the pause menu, there was the option to change the amount of press time required to make a dash. Right there, as a huge obvious option in the menu which you can choose to change at any time during your gameplay. Yes, this means it is more comfortable for people like me. It is more like a minor inconvenience to just press a little bit longer. But what about people with arthritis, for example? This is one small setting that may mean nothing to most, but is also one of the most powerful techniques Morse uses to create inclusive design. I saw this and was very pleased to encounter such an attention to detail in something so important yet so overlooked. This slider alone makes Alex's goal to bond with all the people 10 times more easy to accomplish, because when you apply the real world to a game and you make it so simple and accessible to everyone, you create something that effortlessly not only teaches you a fun and entertaining activity, but also teaches you a new world and way to interact with the things that surround you. And what's even more important, you make such an enjoyable experience that the player can't help but picking up another and learning it too. Understanding then, with every day that goes by and every game session they do, more and more the medium they once were lost in. In the words of its developer, with Morse, I've tried to design a piece of software that not only teaches people a skill, but gives the person playing a scaffold of knowledge to pursue enrichment beyond the software itself. Wow. Morse is an amazing game because through its simplistic nature and cute lo-fi visuals gives us a masterclass on interactive education and inclusive design, something that almost no other game can accomplish so effortlessly and elegantly as the small indie game Alexander Johansson gave us today. This is not to say that games should be easy and everyone should be able to master the default way of playing them. There are certainly some games which are all about mastering their complex arrangement of inputs, but here I find 3 distinct solutions to the conundrum of inclusivity versus difficulty that game developers can implement for the enjoyment of a wider range of audiences. First, and the worst solution of them all, if you could ever call it that, is just get good. Learn the game and overcome the obstacles it presents to you through the developing of your motor skills and hand-eye coordination. But as we discussed, what if you can't do that? What if you have some kind of motor dysfunction impediment that literally makes it impossible for you to play this way? What if you are blind or deaf? Here is where the second solution comes in. When developing a game, well, put some accessibility options in it. For example, in Marvel's Spider-Man, you can adjust the amount of assistance the game gives you while swinging on your webs. And this may help people with underdeveloped motor skills, either it be from a lack of experience in video games or hand-eye coordination or motor disability. But what if this is not enough? Well then, there are games like The Last of Us Part 2, which have so many accessibility options that a blind person would be able to play it and enjoy it without any kind of trouble. The quote-unquote problem with these solutions is that they are not elegant at all, and they also end up heavily modifying the game when activating the inclusive design. So what do we do about it? The third solution. Here stand games like Morse, where the accessibility option is the game. When your main and only mechanic is based on letting anyone play, you don't need clunky accessibility menus or to modify the game for every player that plays it. It's a simple yet so elegant solution that, at least for me, deserves way more praise than any other. So, should every game be so simple and focused on one mechanic like Morse or Before Your Eyes? No. Sometimes having tons of accessibility options is the way to go for some games, and sometimes having none can also enhance the meaning and objective of it. Think about it, if Dark Souls had a difficulty slider, it wouldn't be so Dark Souls anymore, would it? What I want you to take from here is, play playing games is important because it develops skills that are crucial in the real world, like problem solving or hand-eye coordination. But they also teach us to maneuver in this medium of digital experiences. And this is so important, in fact, that making them accessible for everyone is one of the biggest topics in the industry. So much so that there are games made solely for this purpose. So, the next time you grab a game and sit down to play it, I want you to think, who can play this game? Have the developers created something just to get it out of the system or for money? Or have they taken into account one of the most important parts of it and of the whole design industry? Have they thought about educational gaming and inclusive design? Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, it would mean the world to me if you liked it or subscribed. And without further ado, I will see you in the next video.